Even folks, welcome back to the Leeds View for the match review of Newcastle United 4, Leeds United 3. An absolute kick in the gut the way that game finished. There's a lot of positives to talk about, and we will talk about the positive stuff because there's a lot of really good stuff there. Newcastle up to 6th in the Premier League, their third win in a trotting Leeds unbeaten run comes to an end. It was going to come to an end at some point. I suppose that's the only solace we can find in that. Was that how we wanted it to come to an end? Leeds did so much positive stuff going forward. Defensively, at times, we looked a bit shaky, and that ultimately is what cost us. Players not getting to the ball quick enough, not getting out to their players, not stopping crosses coming in. Yeah, but Newcastle are a good side. I'm not going to weigh in too heavy on the lads. They gave absolutely everything in that. They worked their backsides off for the 90 minutes. We were ahead 3 times in that game. You just want to be able to see it out. I've seen some people criticizing the substitutions at the end of the game, but last week people are asking for Daniel Farke to make sure he goes for it and go and try and win these games, and the substitutions were attack minded, fresher legs, and tried to go for it. And to be fair, I don't think the substitutions had anything to do with Leeds United conceding the 4th goal. We've got a stack of players around Harvey Barnes and they don't block the shot. You know, you go back to the bum before it and we don't get out to the ball on the corner flag. We don't stop a cross coming in. You know, just preventable measures there that Leeds could have done to stop themselves conceding. But an incredibly entertaining game. If you're a neutral watching that, that was a hell of a game of football. It was a crazy game of football. I was really looking forward to coming on here with a draw or a win and being able to say that was a nuts game of football and enjoy talking about it. But it is tainted by the result. And again, not to be unrealistic, Leeds were going to drop points at some point. But they've shown on the road now in that game that they can compete with anybody in this division. And they did. They really competed for a long time. 102nd minute when Newcastle's winner went in, 2 minutes after the initial added on time. And that was likely because of the additional substitutions that both sides made in the injury time. But unlucky. Brendan Aronson has a brilliant game again, and he's dangly arm hits the ball. It's unlucky. Say the same for their penalty we got against them. It's a dangling arm that the ball strikes and doesn't take away from Brendan Aronson's performance. I thought he was excellent again. He gets 2 very, very good goals. It would have been great if Leeds could have held on. If you're an attacker walking off the pitch for Leeds after that game, you're able to sit in the dressing room and say, I've done my job today. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scores, Brendan Aronson scores twice. You've done your job. If you're a defender coming off the pitch tonight, you're probably looking at yourself thinking, could I have done more tonight to make sure we won that game? And it's not just the lads in the centre, but it's the lads out wide as well. You know, there was too many crosses that went into the penalty area. We weren't handling the set pieces from Newcastle. Now, that goes in both directions. Newcastle and Leeds are probably 2 of the top sides in the Premier League for set play. So it was always going to be that kind of a game. I've seen people blame the goalkeeper again already. I just talk about agenda setting. If you're going to start pointing fingers at the goalkeeper, there's very little Lucas Perry can do about any of them. The 4th goal, he's unsighted. Harvey Barnes shoots on the turn, and there's 4 players standing over the ball, and it goes through all of them. So yeah, it's crazy to criticize the goalkeeper for any of the goals in that game. And the same for Nick Pope from a Newcastle perspective. Leeds goals were all very good. The penalty was an excellent penalty, and the 2 goals from Brendan Aronson both find the corner. So it's difficult to deal with them. Perry made some decent saves today. We'll go through the individual performances as we go through. If you are watching the stream, if you could stick a like on the video. I know it's crap to ask for that when we've lost the game of football, but if you could stick a like on the video, it would really help me. And if you're watching on demand, if you can give us a hype, and if you're listening to the audio, just give us a channel review or stick a comment on your platforms. That would be amazing. We'll go through it. I suppose the initial thoughts on the game. I think if you look at the lineup that Daniel Farke started with, my initial thoughts were going to be, that's a very defensive minded side. It's 3 out and out central defensive midfielders, and it looks, for all intents and purposes, that we're going to try and get a draw in this game and possibly a low scoring draw. And that just wasn't the case within the first couple of minutes of the game starting. Leeds came out of the blocks. Fantastic. They really went at Newcastle. They caused them all sorts of problems. Newcastle got a grip of it. I think when Newcastle's first goal goes in, from that point on, Leeds' backline starts to just look a little bit shaky. I didn't think Pascal Struijk was his best today. Pulled out of a few tackles, lost a few 50-50s, bit out of position. That left-hand side was a real problem. Obviously, Gabby goes forward and it creates space. We didn't get across and deal with it as well as we could. Not saying he was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but just didn't think he was as good as he has been in recent weeks. Joe Rodon came back in. Ethan Ampadu came back in. Thought they added something there as well. Rodon got a bit tired. I think maybe if Joe's on at the end of that game, maybe the goal doesn't happen. Not to say that Sebastian Bornell was a fault, because he wasn't. There's 4 players around. I think Tanaka's around it. I think Ampadu is in there. I think Bial is in there, and they don't block it. So Yeah, that is what it is. But yeah, I thought the players worked their asses off. I thought they gave everything. And that's what you want from a Leeds United side. Effort, hard work, and endeavour. And that was there in bucket loads tonight. Leeds kept trying to go forward. Even when they were under the cosh from Newcastle, they didn't give up. They kept going forward. And that's what I want this Leeds side to be. I think that's what we should all want this Leeds United side to be. Because if we play like that against sides in the lower half of the table, and that's another side in the top half of the table, in the top 10, top 6 even, the Leeds have had a right go. If you go through it, we narrowly lost to Manchester City. We narrowly lost to Aston Villa. We've drawn with Liverpool twice. We've drawn with Brentford. We've narrowly just lost to Newcastle in an absolute thriller of a match. We've drawn with Manchester United and we've beaten Chelsea. That's not bad. But now we've got to translate that into games against the likes of Fulham and go and get results against them at home. We've got to beat Burnley at home. We've got to beat Nottingham Forest at home. We've got to go away to West Ham and try and get a win there as well if we can. And they're the important ones. That would have been a huge point on the road tonight. It would have been a massive 3 points for Leeds. But you can see the quality that Newcastle have and what they brought off the bench as well. It's an established Premier League side with a bucket of quality coming off the bench. So it was never going to be straightforward and easy. And they didn't stop going for it as well. And they just kept putting balls in on top of us that we had to try and deal with. And you just felt, even when Leeds scored their third, you just felt there was another goal in this game and that maybe it would come Leeds United's way. But unfortunately, it didn't. I mean, we nearly did. I mean, these are 2 chances before Newcastle scored. Their goal. Defensively, not great. You can see 4 goals. You've got to say defensively you've not done your jobs properly because you've conceded 4 goals. No matter how much quality is in there, one of them was a penalty. You can write that one off. The other 3, probably got to do better with them. Newcastle can say the exact same thing about their goals. Individually, I thought there was some very good performances. I don't think Perry did that particularly wrong tonight. He flapped out a couple of crosses, but got hands on them, made 2 decent saves from back-to-back saves from shots from Newcastle, which was okay. But yeah, nothing really to talk about. You look at the back 3, Joe Rodon came back in. Didn't really notice Joe. Thought he was steady enough in the game. Yacobiol had dealt with Valdemada as he has dealt with Mateta, Sesko, Haaland, Ekitike. And Pascal, the ratings there say he was the best defender. I wasn't convinced with Pascal today. He kept running out of his position and going into tackles that I don't think he probably shouldn't. If he's going to go in there, he has to win the ball, win the tackles, and far too often the ball got past him into the corners. But again, not being overly critical of him, I don't think he was necessarily at fault for much. And coming forward, he was very good with the ball, and he gets the ball out to Gabby Goodmunson and gets Leeds attacking very, very well. At times his diagonal balls across the park were very good today as well. Midfield, Ethan Ampadu coming back into it was fine, steady. Ilya Gruev did what Ilya Gruev was in there to do. I thought he broke up the play quite well. He won a lot of tackles. When Leeds weren't winning the ball, there was a loose ball. Gruev was one of the first players to be here to pick it up and pass the 5 yards and get Leeds going again. Stack started very, very well. And recent weeks I've kind of said that for me, Anton Stack starts games slowly and builds into games. In this one, he started really, really well, but kind of faded towards the second half and was starting to look a little bit leggy. He probably could have come off a little bit earlier than he did, but he was still very good for Leeds. He's 2 chances in the first half, 2 shots. One gets blazed over, one gets smashed to keeper. But he was making an impact in the first half, went down a bit in the second half, but you could see he was starting to get a little bit tired. And they've had a huge amount of effort and intensity in the last couple of weeks as well. So to have the bit of energy they had tonight was impressive on its own. Then up front, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Brendan Aronson playing off him. Aronson was excellent, worked his socks off, covered a huge amount of ground behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin. One of the things I was looking forward to talking about is the partnership between the two of them, because I think there's a real understanding growing between Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Brendan Aronson. They seem to find each other quite well. Calvert-Lewin just runs when Aronson gets the ball and he tries to feed balls in. Aronson plays very well off of Calvert-Lewin's chest downs and nod downs are pretty close towards each other. Even for Brendan Aronson's second goal, Calvert-Lewin makes an incredibly intelligent run away to just drag out a bit of space for Aronson to run into. There's a good partnership building there between the two. He looked knackered when he went off as well, though, so gave everything. I would love to see what distance Brendan Aronson covered today, because he didn't stop running. He was even running back and making defensive tackles as well. And then Calvert-Lewin gets his goal from the penalty spot. Grant held up the ball when he had to hold up the ball, won his headers when he had to win his headers, was physical. Yeah, a fine game for a striker who was, for the most part, isolated enough the way Leeds are building their attacks. But yeah, it was fine. Going forward, he scores 3 goals. He should be coming off the pitch talking about a positive result after scoring 3 times. But this will be one of the Premier League crackers they talk about. And I've watched these with Liverpool and Newcastle as a neutral fan and really enjoyed them. Hard to enjoy that when you lose the way you've lost at the very, very end. Overall, to talk about the team, I think in general they were very brave tonight. I thought they had a go to them. People will say that's probably a bit corny and a bit cheesy, but I thought they were. I thought they kept going and they kept going forward. At no point did Leeds try and drop in and sit back. Maybe the first 5-10 minutes of the second half we sat off a little bit. or maybe Newcastle came out and pressed us a bit more, so that can go both ways. But I thought in general we were brave, thought we went for it. Defensively, as I say, thought we looked a bit shaky at times. Up until the first goal goes in, I think we're fine. Then the goal goes in. There's a mad phase of play in the first half, just after they score towards the half-time mark, where it's all Newcastle and Leeds are all over the place. And then we get the penalty. And we managed to go in 2-1 at half-time, which was brilliant. Didn't deal with the crosses well enough for me today in terms of blocking crosses. There was far too many crosses came into Leeds' box today. That's the first centre-half and the full-back that have to deal with them between them, and then maybe even one of the midfielders. I think the Joe Linton goal for me is one that we should all be a little bit annoyed about. The ball goes into the corner flag. We saw this with Southampton 2 years ago on the final day of the season in the Championship, where the ball looks like it's going out of play and everyone just gives up on it and assumes it's going out of play, and they don't. And they keep it in play, and there's still no Leeds player getting out to them, and the ball's passed back to Guimaraes, and all the Leeds players have dropped in at that stage. No one has stayed with Guimaraes, and he flicks the ball at the outside of his foot onto the head of Joe Linton. So 2 or 3 opportunities there to stop that goal coming in. Just maybe overly focused on getting bodies behind the ball and not sticking with their men and not man marking when they should be man marking. But yeah, that was it. But and they got tired. But they've had a huge amount of output. The squad's not massive. They need to back Daniel Farke down the next couple of weeks. They need to get some bodies in, even loans, to give him some more options. Another centre back on that left-hand side for me is needed as an option. I think we probably need a box-to-box midfielder, someone to get forward and get more goals. And I think we still need a number 9 up front as well to give us more options with DCL, because I think Metcha comes on earlier if he hasn't had the injury a few weeks ago. Gone through the individual stuff. Where does it leave Leeds? Well, it leaves us in 16th place still in the Premier League. At one point tonight, we were 15th, and we'd gone over the 10-point gap between ourselves and West Ham. But as it finishes, it's exactly what we were. And that's the point of that gap, and that's the point of that buffer. We don't have to worry too much, but that's one of the tougher games out of the way. It's a shame that it's a loss, but I funny enough, I thought Leeds would lose 2-1 tonight. I didn't see this coming. I don't think anybody did. Even the most positive Leeds fans, I don't think would have thought we'd have scored 3 goals tonight. I think the most pessimistic Leeds fans wouldn't have seen us conceding 4 tonight. So yeah, there's work to do this week, but they've got the FA Cup now at the weekend before, and that'll break up things before then they have Fulham at home, and that game becomes really, really important. And Fulham are doing really well. They're up to 9th in the table. They're on a really good run of form right now. Fulham have 3 wins and 2 draws in their last 5 matches. But from a Leeds perspective, it's a home game. And it's a game against a side, well, they're now in the top 10. They weren't a couple of weeks ago, but it's an opportunity for Leeds to try and do something there and get some more points on the board again. We'll see what West Ham situation is like by then. Burnley picking up a point today against Manchester United. Wolves have started to pick up a few points as well as they're moving forward. They drew with Everton tonight. So Leeds need to start picking up more points again as we get going again. But that's one of the tougher runs out of the way. We've got next Fulham at home, then Everton away, then we've Arsenal at home, which will be a tough game. Then we've got Forest at home, and that'll be huge. That'll be absolutely huge. You've also got Brentford at home later on in March as well. Palace away, Sunderland at home. So there's some good games coming for Leeds as well in the next couple of weeks. We'll have to see how we get on. But if you're going to go through the goals, I won't bore you with all the chances. But if we go through the goals, Leeds' first goal is a really good goal. Brendan Aronson. I really wanted Tao to stay on because he was having an absolute stinker in the first half. He just falls over and down the Calvert-Lewin, picks the ball up and plays it through to Brendan Aronson, who scores a wonderful goal from the edge of the box. A cracking shot by him. But again, similar to the weekend, Leeds can only maintain the lead for 4 minutes. And then Newcastle score. For me, personally, it's poor defensively, too sloppy, not tight enough to their men, not marking tight enough. And Harvey Barnes manages to score Pascal Strauch stretching for a ball. But again, no one's watching Barnes. No one gets close enough to him. And they score. And then we're lucky we get the penalty then. I won't say lucky. It's a handball. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has a tap in if he doesn't handle the ball. And then Dominic Calvert-Lewin scores the penalty and Leeds going 2-1 at half time. And then the second half is just absolutely mental. We managed to keep the score as it was until the 54th minute when Newcastle scored. And that's that Joe Linton going. That's the one that will annoy me more than most. And because you've got to get out. You've got to assume the ball's going to stay in play, finish your run, get out, and then you've got to mark Guimaraes. You can't be on that much space on the edge of Leeds penalty area. And he puts the ball in. Joe Linton heads the ball into the back of the net. Then Leeds score again. Do Leeds score again? Newcastle score with Joe Linton. Yeah, then Leeds score again. Brendan Aronson. Grove picks up the ball, loose in the middle of the park really, really well. Gives to Brendan Aronson. Cavalier makes a lovely run away, pulls one of the defenders away, gives Aronson a bit of a gap, and he balls under his feet. Actually, it's not an easy shot for Brendan Aronson. He gets it out from underneath him and puts a lovely strike into the far corner. And you think, Grant, just hang on, lads, if you can. And then Newcastle get a penalty. Brendan Aronson jumps at the cross to block the cross, and his arm is dangling, and it hits off the arm. VAR had a look at it for a while. It was definitely a penalty. If the first one was a penalty, that's a penalty, unfortunately. And then Newcastle scored that one, and then you're thinking, just hang on. That was in the 90th minute. You've got 12 minutes. Just hang on. We looked a bit tired. They kept coming forward. Lucas Mecha had a chance in the middle of that, half a chance, and then the goal comes. And for me, again, Leeds don't do well enough to clear the ball. It's whipped into the penalty area to Barnes. He chests it with his back to goal, and Leeds have a wall of players in behind him. They've got to move to him and push him out, and they don't. They let him spin. And then there's just a gap between all of them. They're all lined up in a row and just goes straight between the gap into the far corner. Perry doesn't see it, and the ball goes into the corner of the net. And it's really unfortunate. It's it's a sucker punch. It's a kick in the gut to finish the game like that, to do so well, to come back in, to be 3-2 up, and then between the 90th minute to the final whistle to end up losing 4-3 is a real tough one to take. It's never an easy place to go to, James Park. They're a good side, Newcastle. They're having a weird season, but they're still a decent side. They're sixth, as I say, in the Premier League. They're in the Champions League. They've got depth in that squad. They've got very good players. They've got an incredible midfield. But that's twice this year now we've played them home and away, and we've given them a real battle. Their players were lying on the park when the final whistle was blown. So, not that should be any solace for us, but it does show they were in a hell of a game tonight. We need to bottle that performance, Leeds do. We need to bottle that. Sort the defensive mistakes out. Just sort them out, because there was a few cracks from early season Leeds about just not getting close with the players and maybe ball watching a little bit. They can sort that out because they have before. Sort it out and then go again. If you look at the momentum graph below, for anyone watching on the videos, that was a up and down the park game. It was a fantastic game of football. Again, from a neutral perspective, heartbreaking for Leeds. But it is what it is, and we lose the game. Folks, it's late tonight, so I won't jump into the comments tonight. We'll wrap it up nice and early. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the news. I'll get some detail. We'll have a live stream at the weekend as well, so we'll get into more comments and chat to you properly at the weekend. But it's 11:15 now, so we'll wrap it up there. Massive thanks to everyone for supporting the channel, as always, for watching, for commenting, for liking, for hyping, all the good stuff, and for everyone who came over to Big Up to join us tonight on the watch time and joined in our new predictions game where you can win a few quid over on bigup.com. We'll give you more details on that over the next couple of weeks. But enjoy the rest of your evening. Dust ourselves off from this one. Maybe a bridge too far. And we'll step into the weekend against Derby in the Cup, get some fresher legs in the park, some minutes for players that need it. And then we'll go again against Fulham next weekend, and we'll see how we go. Folks, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, as always, for supporting the channel. Talk to you soon. See you later.